Wednesday. This is The Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, live in Los Angeles, iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Tony Dungy on the couch today. James Harrison on the couch today. Joy Taylor's hanging out with us today. Of course she is.
Good morning, Colin.
Good morning, Joy Taylor. We got a lot of stuff today. You can feel our world shifting into the NFL. We've got some great NFL stuff today. And next hour, very top of it, as you know, I finally wrap up my NFL predictions. I go to the NFC South, which is crazy, crazy good. But let me start with this. Everybody's always selling you something. There's the truth in sports, and then there's what they're selling you, the consumer, and selling me, the reporter opinion guy in sports. So it is my job, I believe, to tell you the truth. What they're selling you isn't the truth, or there's a reason they're selling you something. So we know that Kawhi Leonard doesn't want to play in Toronto, right? Like multiple sources. Well. This morning the story comes out. Yeah, he's kind of warming to the idea of playing in Toronto. It's overnight. He slept on it. Had a nice steak last night, baked potato, woke up. I love Canada. Really? This is a guy that wants a major shoe deal. Unless he's trying to get a snowshoe deal, he's not getting it in Toronto. Okay, he doesn't love Toronto. Here's why that story's coming out. Because Kawhi Leonard, and he's right, needs to protect his reputation. A lot of people get fired. Mark Cuban got fired. Howard Stern got fired. Everybody's had a bad day, a bad month, a bad job. Kawhi in San Antonio. You have 2 or 3 of those and you get labeled a flake, weird, odd, strange. Shoe companies don't want to do business. Aaron Rodgers could push back on the Packers front office. Why isn't he more aggressive like Kirk Cousins? Because he makes a lot of money with State Farm. A lot of advertisers like Aaron Rodgers. Good-looking guy, middle of the country, heart of America, Green Bay Packers. He starts saying $25 million a year is not enough. I am holding out. And State Farm's like, we're holding out too. Aaron Rodgers gets the game. He's a smart guy. He's very sellable right now as a Midwestern commodity. And Kawhi Leonard right now, that San Antonio thing was weird. He doesn't talk to anybody. The Spurs system, he's the first guy that discombobulated. He can't kill his reputation. Dude wants a shoe deal. He wants commercials. He wants to play in Los Angeles. Here's the facts about Toronto. They made this deal because, A, they wanted to get out of DeMar DeRozan's contract. They also want to get out of Serge Ibaka's contract. Eventually, they want out of Kyle Lowry's contract. Really, Kyle Lowry, $31 million a year? It would be great if Kawhi, and I think they'll be pretty good this year with Kawhi. Right now, this year, short term, they'll be good with Kawhi. But Kawhi should realize they're going to reboot. They didn't like DeMar DeRozan's contract. They don't like Lowry's, frankly. They like him as a guy. You don't want to pay him $31 million, really? Really? And they don't like Serge Ibaka's contract, so they're going to reboot this puppy. Listen, the media's fascinated with Toronto. They got a cool story. We are the North. Media loves stories. And they also, it's a hip city, and people in the media are not hip. But if they embrace on social media cities that are hip, it makes them hipper. And Toronto's hip, cool, diverse, urban. But players don't want to play there. Steve Nash was a Canadian. He passed. Okay? Vince Carter, get me out of here. T-Mac, get me out of here. Kawhi yesterday, no thanks. Suddenly now, oh my God, he's warming up to the idea. Can't wait to play there. Tax rate's brutal. Winter's bad. Can't get a shoe deal in Toronto. And a shoe deal means a lot to Kawhi Leonard, and I've told you this before. Because James Harden's making $200 million for one, and he's making $500,000 a year, and he's a better overall player than James Harden. Now, James Harden's got the beard and the mojo and the points and the game and the style and the commercials, and for a while a Kardashian. But in the end, it shouldn't be $200 million for Harden, $500,000 for Kawhi. It should be closer to $200 million for Harden and $75 to $80 million for Kawhi. Right now, he's making $500,000 on shoes. Canadian guys don't get shoe deals. Okay, so this is a nice story, but being the man in Toronto, remember, Drake is from Canada and Bieber's from Canada. They do most of their business down here. Let me shift to this. Tony Dungy in 15 minutes. Love Tony Dungy. Love Tony. Haven't seen him in years. Greg Popovich and the Spurs say, quote, "We are very happy what we got here with DeMar DeRozan." Everybody's selling that in the media. Everybody loves it. Everybody's happy. I was reading a bunch of reporters yesterday. Good job. Okay. Kawhi's a top 5 player in the league, and you got a $28 million guard who can't shoot. He's a career 29% three-point shooter. Almost $30 million a year. By the way, in the playoffs, it gets worse. In the playoffs, his career three-point percentage is 23%. Apparently, he plays blindfolded in the playoffs. Last year, he was benched against Cleveland. Disappeared when they left Canada. By the way, DeMar DeRozan's a good kid, works hard, can get you buckets. But he's been in the NBA for 9 years. The Spurs system's not going to transform him. 9 years in any business, and you know what people are. I've never worked with a single person on radio that 9 years in, they're a slappy. Year 10, they're Hall of Fame material. It doesn't work that way. I can listen to a tape for 90 seconds. Good. Not good. 9 years? I need 9 years to transform you. Never been a guy in the law office for 9 years. He's an average C- attorney. Year 10, he's Johnny Cochran. It doesn't work that way. Now, he may be really, really talented. Kevin Garnett breaks into the NBA. He's not an all-star yet, but you see the talent and the potential. We know what DeMar DeRozan is. We know what he is. Good kid, works hard, very vertical, not really a shooter in a shooter's league. Your legacy in any business is defined by year 9. Nobody pops in year 9 and 10. DeMar DeRozan's going into what, year 10? Now, baseball players popped in year 10. Yeah, 237 hitters became Joe DiMaggio. They would later appear in front of Congress. Yeah, you know that era in baseball where a 5-tool player, one of the tools was a syringe. Yeah, in baseball, guys would pop. 237 hitter became Mantle. They were taking cattle steroids. That's also happened in cycling, where a guy's an average cyclist, and now he goes to the French Alps and is Bugs Bunny. Okay, there's something going in his butt, his arm, his thigh, his something. We know how it works. Victor Oladipo, most improved player in the league. What year was it? Year 4. Kevin Love, most improved player in the NBA. Year 3. Paul George, most improved player in the year. Year 3. C.J. McCollum, most improved player in the NBA. Year 3. Giannis, most improved player in the NBA. Year 4. Okay, the Spurs did fine. They did okay. The Raptors got a great player who can now be a great bargaining chip to rebuild. Toronto won this deal. In the NBA, and I've been following it for 4 decades, whoever gets the great player wins the trade. The Raptors got a great player, and they're going to keep him for as long as they can. And if he plays the entire year, they're going to be a very, very good basketball team. They'll probably end up, I would guess, playing the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Championship. That's probably where they'll be. Or they'll be darn close to it, playing the Sixers in a long series to get to the Celtics. DeMar DeRozan, 9 years in, think he's heading to his 10th. He's fine. He's not an all-star in the West. Good dude, works hard, get you buckets. But again, start the show today. Kawhi doesn't suddenly love Toronto. And the Spurs did fine. Okay. I still contend they were offered more picks and more talent when this story broke about Kawhi in L.A. by the Lakers. And they tried to bully the Lakers, and the Lakers backed out. I love Perky Jerky. What makes it so great are all the unique flavors. They have a new variety pack, Home Run. A lot of options. Listen, life gets boring fast. Try a different flavor. Every game, special offer, 40% off all multi-packs. The best tasting jerky on earth, guaranteed. So I saw a quote yesterday by Antonio Brown, who's an amazing, remarkable player, probably the most talented wide receiver since Jerry Rice, maybe more talented. Not sure he's the complete player that Jerry Rice was, but he's unbelievably talented. And he said yesterday about the Pittsburgh Steelers window, and by the way, the great James Harrison, multiple Super Bowls, 5-time Pro Bowler, former Steeler, very critical of the Steelers, played for the Patriots last year, is joining us in an hour and a half. But Antonio Brown said yesterday, I feel like the window of opportunity is getting smaller and smaller. Now is the time, absolutely. This time will have to be the time. I could not disagree more. Pittsburgh's window is 5 years. First of all, Big Ben's 36. He talked about retirement nonstop. Then they got rid of Todd Haley. 5 minutes later, he stopped talking about retirement. Big Ben's got 3 to 4 great years left. He was very good. He's never been a precision guy like Aaron Rodgers or Brady, but he is a great player. They have 2 Pro Bowlers on the offensive line. Both have several years left. The Rooneys are not selling the franchise anytime soon, meaning they'll have elite imperialistic ownership. They have the next great wide receiver in the league, and nobody drafts wide receivers better than the Pittsburgh Steelers for the last 20 years in this league, from Hines Ward to the latest, greatest Juju Smith-Schuster. He's 21 years old. They've got 2 unbelievable linebackers. I love both, T.J. Watt and Ben Dupree. So they got their anchors on defense, and these days you got to have linebackers. Antonio Brown, by the way, has got 3 great years in Pittsburgh left. Their organization is incredibly well run. By the way, the Bengals aren't and the Browns aren't. 2 of the league's 4 or 5 most dysfunctional franchises aren't going anywhere in their division. Unless they're realigning divisions, the Browns and the Bengals are going to have to go and play Pittsburgh twice a year, and Pittsburgh owns both. Cleveland can't beat them, and the Bengals can't beat them. By the way, what's Baltimore right now? Next 5 years, who's their quarterback? They don't want to pay Flacco. I don't know anything about Lamar Jackson. He was good in college. I don't know if he's going to be good in the NFL. What about Le'Veon Bell? What about him? He's the window. He's barely the blinds. He's not the window. He was out for 14 games in 2015 and 2016. They were 10-4. Averaged a touchdown more a game. More yards rushing per game. And I like him. Le'Veon Bell's a great player. But he's not the window. Big Ben's the window. He's the blinds. He was gone for 14 games. They were 10-4. Okay? And averaged more than a touchdown more a game. Seattle's window. You could tell me that's closed or closing. New England, when Tom Brady leaves, that window is going to close. They're going to shut that thing in about 5 minutes. Carolina, if Cam Newton can't get it going with Norv Turner makes every quarterback good and efficient. If Cam can't do it with him after this year, there are going to be people in that organization that are tired of Cam. He's going to wear people out. Roller coaster Cam. Good year, bad year. Good year, bad year. Good year, bad year. Pittsburgh's not going anywhere. Best ownership, least dysfunctional organization, best quarterback easily in the division, star back, star receiver, star offensive line. They draft better than anybody in the division. They've got their next 2 great linebackers, have their next great wide receiver, in place their next 2 great offensive linemen. If Le'Veon Bell leaves, I like him, but he's not the window, he's the blinds. Big Ben is fantastic. And have you noticed something? Have you noticed since Todd Haley left, he didn't talk about retirement anymore? Like an hour later, I'll play forever. All these guys, here's something else about this league, is that it's a no-huddle league, and it's more and more a bubble screen league. When Big Ben takes shots now, he chooses to take shots. He can get rid of the ball much sooner. He's 36. 36 now is the new 33. Tom Brady's going to be 41. That's the new 37. Everybody, LeBron James, oh my God, he is 33 years old. Michael Jordan went to D.C. at 38. I saw Michael Jordan play at 40. He was a non-vertical player, and he was the best player on the floor in the Rose Garden in Portland, Oregon, and the Blazers had a playoff team with guys like Bonzi Wells and Damon Stoudemire. And Michael was the best player on the floor at 40, and Michael was a steak eater and a wine drinker and a cigar smoker and didn't have the training that LeBron's got and Cristiano Ronaldo's got and Tom Brady's got and Aaron Rodgers has got. Steelers window's not going anywhere. Best owner, best quarterback, best O-line, best franchise, best fan base, best home field advantage, although Baltimore's close.
Catch the herd from noon to 3 Eastern on iHeartRadio and FS1.
About every third year, I get lucky enough to have my next guest on. He's a busy guy, NBC football analyst, Super Bowls. Tony Dungy and I met years ago. I was a young sportscaster, an annoying young sportscaster in Tampa. And Tony was interviewing for the job with the Buccaneers. They had Sam White, who was very verbose and outspoken, actually a very funny guy. And Tony was soft-spoken. And Rich McKay said to me, he interviewed him. And I said, what do you think? And he said, well, we know he's the guy. We know we want to hire him, but he's quiet. And at the time, there weren't Tony Dungy's on the market. A teacher. A thoughtful teacher. Football coaches yelled and they screamed. So Rich interviewed him again, Burn's Steakhouse. And he came to me and he said, we just have to understand that Tony is different. He's going to change the way people coach. And let me bring him on, my friend Tony Dungy. Sunday Night Football, got a new book out. You probably don't remember the annoying sportscaster.
I remember it well, but that was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, and it's really interesting, Tony. People look at you now, and there are more Tony Dungys. Yelling and screaming is out. But when you came into this league, you were an outlier. You were a teacher. You were a mentor. I think it worked against you a couple times. Do you?
It did for a while, and I was so much like my coach, Chuck Noll, and Chuck was different. He wasn't the Lombardi. He wasn't the guy who everybody saw. You know, he kind of stayed in the background. And that's how I modeled myself. And some people didn't understand that. Some people didn't see it. One owner told me in an interview he didn't think it would work. And so,
by the way, I didn't know if it would work. I remember saying on the air, I'm like, I know he's got experience, brains, he's played. Man, he's quiet. And by the way, we lived in a world of Parcells.
Yeah, yes.
And you'd see NFL films and Bill's cussing out, dog cussing the trainer.
And everybody thought that's how you won at that time. So, and then we start out 0-5. And then people are really saying it's not going to work. But the thing I think our players really appreciated, I know Derek Brooks, Dave Moore, guys have told me, at 0-3, 0-4, 0-5, it never changed. We were waiting for you to blow up, and you didn't. And when you didn't, we knew that hey, this is the way it's going to be, and let's go.
And then you go from Tampa, and then you moved to Indianapolis, and it was very interesting because between you and Bill Polian and Peyton Manning, you added real stability to an ownership group to this day where they're impulsive. And when I think of the Colts, I don't think people have ever appreciated Peyton Manning. Listen, Elway and he scrapped in Denver. Peyton is a machine. Not every coach. Remember, Elway had his problems with the coach. Brady and Belichick now squabble. Tomlin and Big Ben, Aaron Rodgers, McCarthy. It is not easy coaching superstars. So here comes Tony, a defensive guy, and then you get this almost computer with a helmet. You backed off. You really let Peyton have responsibility as a young quarterback. Was that hard as the head coach to realize this kid may be able to do more than most quarterbacks?
No, it wasn't hard because, again, I go to my background with Coach Noll, and that's how he was. You guys have to take ownership. When I got to the Steelers, Joe Green did as much for that team and laid as much of the foundation as Coach Noll. Now, it came from Coach, and everything started there. But Joe Green was the voice in the locker room, and he was saying everything that Coach Noll said, and we understood that. So to empower your players, that wasn't hard at all when you're on the same page. So that was the thing. Peyton and I just had to get on the same page. And
ever have a spat early?
It wasn't a spat so much. He was very nervous and very paranoid. He thought I was a defensive coach. We played a lot of 13-10 games in Tampa, and he said, oh, you're going to slow it down, and this is the way we're going to play. I said, no, we're going to play to our strength. We're just going to be very precise. We're going to take care of the football. Once we got through that, we were fine. Now, he'd always come in. He'd have 20 pages of yellow legal pad ideas and things that he wanted to do and things he wanted to talk about. But it was good because it kept you sharp. And once he understood what we were trying to do, he was the spokesman for it. And his voice in the locker room was just what a head coach needed.
So you, as a person and as a coach, I believe there are certain people. I'll give Marvin Lewis credit for that. Cincinnati was a mess before Marvin got there. Doc Rivers, the Clippers were a mess before Doc got there. I've always said this, is that I can be critical of Mike Tomlin because he moved into the Rolls-Royce of franchises. Great ownership. But Marvin Lewis and Doc Rivers moved into organizations that were chaotic, and I'm going to give them an extra year or two. I think of you, and I think of stability. I think of family stability. I think your brand is stability. This past year, for the first time in 18 years, Malcolm Butler, Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, it doesn't look all great. Gronk's calling him out. Amendola's calling him out. Is it possible, Tony, that Belichick and Brady, after 18 years, they've just kind of worn each other out.
It could be, but I really don't think so. I think maybe just some of the things have become a little more public than maybe we knew before. I bet these kind of things happened before. We just didn't hear about them. I just know from being with my partner, Rodney Harrison, there's a Patriot way of doing things. Everybody there understands that. I just think it's much ado about nothing myself.
Okay, so it's finally public.
It's public. That's all.
Yeah. But for the record, in Tampa and in Indianapolis, I knew stuff. Warren Sapp comes to the team. Warren wasn't always loved his first year. I mean, you had some egos to deal with in Tampa, and then Peyton Manning again. Peyton's blunt and frank, and that probably turned off some people. So some stuff is public, some is not. Before I get into the Le'Veon Bell situation and what you're doing for work, I do want to touch on Brandon Cooks and the Rams. So the Rams are good. I mean, good God, their punter's good, their kicker's good, their D-line's good, their quarterback, and now they bring on Marcus Peters and Ndamukong Suh. Tremendous talents. But, Tony, there are lines. And it's a stable, energetic, young locker room in Los Angeles. But Marcus Peters, college and pro coach, Chris Peterson and Andy, who are very tolerant guys.
If you can't play for those
Andy,
two guys.
Is it possible, Tony? They've bitten off, acquired a little more, and it could disrupt this talented locker room.
Well, you always think talent is the key, and I look at it like baking a cake. You put a cake together and you've got all the perfect ingredients and you think the cake is going to be great, but it's still how you mix it, how you do it, and you've got to put it in the oven and it's got to come out. And they've got a lot of talent, and they've amassed a lot of talent. They've brought in talent, but we've seen before where that doesn't always work. Washington Redskins
Philadelphia Eagles a few years ago. Remember, they went all in on free agents. It blew up.
And just bringing the best players and saying we've got better ingredients doesn't mean you're going to have a better cake. It still has to come together. And I'm a little concerned. I love them. I actually spent a couple of days out there. We had them in a playoff game against Atlanta last year. And those players love Sean McVay. There's no question he is the right man for that team. And they said, you know what, we had a very good team. Now we've got 5 better pieces, so our team's going to be better. Doesn't always work that way.
What was the best team talent-wise you ever had? Did they win a Super Bowl?
No.
Okay, so what was it?
Well, our 2005 team in Indy was the best team. Our 2006 Super Bowl team, of my 7 teams there, was probably number 4 or number 5 talent-wise.
Isn't that amazing?
But it was the group that hung together. We persevered. We had some young guys who really stepped up. Joseph Adai, Antoine Bethea, they were young, and they helped us. But it was the team that had that grit. We had 2003 was a very talented team. 2004, 2005 was maybe the best team I've been around other than our 70s Steeler team, and we didn't win it all.
This is the Herd Podcast.
Le'Veon Bell wants more money, and he's a great player. But this past draft had 8 draftable running backs. You were in a similar situation with Edgerrin James. People forget how great he was. And Jim Irsay, your owner, he didn't want to pay him, did he?
Well, no. Jim wanted to pay him. He loved Edgerrin. That was his guy. And Bill, looking at it from a GM standpoint, said, look, we can pay Edgerrin. He deserves it. He's done so much for this franchise. But if we pay Edgerrin what he's worth, what someone else is going to give him, 2 years from now, we won't have Reggie Wayne, Dallas Clark, Dwight Freeney. So that's a decision we have to make. I went home and slept on it for a couple of days. Jim Irsay went home and slept on it. We came back and said, Bill, you're right. As much as we love Edgerrin, as great as he is, as much as he's done for this city, we can't do it. Bill said, well, draft a running back in the first round. We ended up getting Joseph Adai.
Who's a nice player.
Who played great for us that Super Bowl year. We signed those 3 guys to long-term contracts. They ended up, Reggie's going to be a Hall of Famer. Dwight has a chance to be a Hall of Famer. But we kept the glue of the team together. Emotionally, it was hard to do. And is it fair that Edgerrin James played so hard for us, had knee surgery, overcame an ACL, came back and played, didn't get the big money that maybe he deserved from us? It's hard, but that's football.
Hardest player you ever cut? Or I should say cut or end of his career. You let him go and you drove home that day and you just didn't feel good about it.
Yeah, there's some tough ones. Edgerrin was a hard one to do, to let him go after he'd meant so much to the team.
You're a father figure to so many players. Was it easier to cut or get rid of an older guy or a younger guy? Because you were a young coach that people gave chances to.
I always felt badly about the young guys. And what people don't understand, you're never quite sure. You think you're making the right decision. You've got a young guy who's not quite ready yet, but he's going to be good. And you let him go. And it doesn't work out. We had a corner named Al Harris in Tampa.
Yeah.
You probably remember.
Yes, I do.
And Al's there. We've got Ronde Barber. We've got Martin Mayhew.
John Lynch lighting guys up in the back end.
And Al Harris comes in from Texas A&M Kingsville. He's not quite ready yet. He's got this swagger. You know he's going to be good, but he wasn't quite there yet. We let him go. He goes to Pro Bowls for Green Bay, and you say he should be playing for us. But those are the ones you lose sleep over. Did I give this young guy enough time?
It's not an exact science. You can't beat yourself up. Belichick, Chad Jackson, wide receiver, Florida, first round, couldn't play. It happens. By the way, your battles with Belichick, did you sleep less that week?
Not really. But the tough thing about them is you knew whatever you had seen in your last couple of games, whatever you'd seen them do in the 4 weeks previous, you weren't going to get that. So you sit there thinking, what are they going to do? What's different? And that's what we'd always tell our teams. By the time I played against them 4 or 5 times, say, hey, we got to just weather the first quarter. We don't know what they're going to come. It might be no huddle, fast paced. It might be 3 running backs and pound the ball. It might be all blitzes. It might be all zone. We don't know what they're going to do. But if we're within striking distance at the end of the first quarter, we'll adjust and go. But they were so good at changing up what they did. That's what made them tough to play.
By the way, you finally beat Belichick in the AFC Championship. As a defensive guy, did Brady have any tells? Poker players have tells. They cough. They get nervous. Was there anything about Tom you're like, okay, if he pats his right shoulder?
Not really. Again, they had the capacity to be a different offense every week. And that's what you didn't know. It could be 5 wide receivers and no huddle. It could be all running game and pound it and play action pass.
Very precise.
Very precise. If you didn't get pressure, you had to be able to get pressure against Tom Brady without blitzing. If you have to blitz, he's going to read it and get to the right play. If you don't blitz but you don't get pressure,
you're done.
He's comfortable, and he's going to pick you apart. So the times we had success is when we had our front 4 rolling and we could get pressure with 4 guys without blitzing.
Underrated quarterback you faced as a defensive coordinator. Who was better than people gave him credit for? We know Brady was great. Anybody else that was a pain?
Phillip Rivers was tremendous and
tough
because he hasn't won a Super Bowl. Came in with Eli, and Eli won 2. Phillip doesn't get maybe the credit that he deserves, but he's played well for a long time and always gave us problems. He'd probably, I think he'd be at the top of my list. Very durable, very tough guy, and his players love playing with him.
And a trash talker.
Yes.
A total barker on the field. Hey, you have a couple of children's books, you and your wife, Lauren Dungy. You're releasing 2 children's books in August, Austin Plays Fair and Maria Finds Courage. You've always been very passionate about kids. As I said when I introduced you, I see you as a teacher. You remind me a lot of Mike Riley. Do you know Mike?
I love Mike, yeah.
Mike is you and Mike are probably the most gracious people who are ever public football figures in my life. And Mike, like you, is a teacher. Yeah. Put a lot of guys in the NFL, by the way, at Oregon State, which is not easy. Tell me about the books.
Well, it's actually my wife's idea. Lauren, when I coached for the Bucs, the coaches' wives and the players' wives used to go out and read to elementary school kids on Tuesday, the players' day off. And Lauren said, there aren't a lot of books out there that have diverse characters, number one, that have a good message and are fun to read. We want to read something to these kids they can relate to that'll get them excited about reading and learning. My wife's a former teacher, too. So we kind of got on this kick. Let's try to write some books that have a good message, that kids will enjoy, that have characters from all over. So August 7th, they're coming out, these first 2. Austin Plays Fair, Maria Finds Courage. People can go to teamdungy.com. They can pre-order. And in fact, we're having a contest that people can sign up for, and they can get their child as a character in the next book that comes out.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah. So if they go to teamdungy.com, they can find out all about it. But we're really excited about it, Colin.
It's interesting. All these coaches now, they work 75, 80 hours a week. It shouldn't be that way. I think what's happening, Jimmy Johnson should still be coaching. Bill Parcells should still be coaching. But it burned them out. I think football's too rough on coaches.
It is, and I think we've done it to ourselves. I started in 1981 with Chuck Noll. I coached 8 years for him. I never remember missing dinner at home with my family. We'd be home at 8 o'clock at the latest. Coach Noll felt like we could do it, work hard, but work smartly. He always gave us 6 weeks off in the summer. He gave us 1 week off every month in the off season. Reconnect with your families. We'll get our work done. And that's the way I did it. And, we won a Super Bowl. I know Mike Tomlin.
How about, by the way, in Indianapolis? That wasn't that long ago. So you could get home for dinner. God, that's amazing.
No, we did. And those coaches that sleep in the office. Now, I went through that. I coached 3 years with Marty Schottenheimer. My wife thought I was having an affair. I left Coach Noll, and I go to work for Marty, and it's great. We had a wonderful time. We won a lot of games, but we're working until 2 a.m. She said, "What are you doing that you didn't do in Pittsburgh?" And I said, "Really nothing. We're just not as efficient." And she said, "You can't be there till 2 a.m. not doing any more. What is going on?"
That is great. Yeah, no, I think we wear these guys out. I mean, Jimmy Johnson had 10 years left of coaching, and Bill Parcells had 8 years left of coaching. And I was really fortunate. I was blessed. I worked for Coach Noll and then 4 years for Denny Green. And Denny was the same way. He had worked for Bill Walsh. He really believed in family. He let me bring my kids to the office. As a matter of fact, tell you a funny story. Herm Edwards replaced me at Kansas City for Marty. So I would finish up at 8 o'clock, and I'd call Herm, and I'd say, "I know you guys are just starting. You got 4 more hours. I'm going home right now." We played them like the third game of the season. We beat them 27-3. And I said, we went home at 8 o'clock every night tonight. And so work put in, hours put in, it doesn't tell the story. It's being efficient, and you can work smartly and not work long. Yeah, Steve Spurrier in college was one of the first coaches that came out and said, "Yeah, I'm golfing twice a week." And we're still dropping 38 points a game in the SEC. So it can be done. All right, he's got books out. Austin Plays Fair, Maria Finds Courage. What website again, Tony, do they go to?
TeamDungy.com. TeamDungy.com. They can get all the information.
Okay, my NFL predictions continue. Top of next hour. Real pleasure to see you. You're a very busy guy. I watch every Sunday night. I'm glommed onto that. You and Rodney Harrison and all the guys. So NBC does a tremendous job. Al Michaels lives right down the street. Chris Collinsworth's become a terrific analyst.
He is great.
He is homework and details.
Yeah. No, we've got a great team.
Yeah, I like those NBC guys. Not too much. Still want to beat them, but we like them. Tony, great seeing you.
Catch the herd from noon to 3 Eastern on iHeartRadio and FS1.
This is the last day that we make a prediction in the NFL. We just pick every day at this time. We pick the division, and we laid it out. And so let's go over what we've done so far. We started with the NFC North. Minnesota freaked out, nothing but hate mail. I got the Packers winning the division. I think they've solved their primary weakness, and that is secondary. Vikings are still a viable playoff team, but they pull back a little. New coordinator, new quarterback. They were bizarrely healthy last year. Then Lions and Bears rounded out. In the AFC North, I think Pittsburgh's going to be the best football team in the National Football League this year. Baltimore's got a quarterback controversy on its hand. Browns, Bengals, meh, but I think the Browns will at least be encouraging and fun to watch. Then I went to the AFC East. I think the Patriots win, but pull back, rebuilding both lines. Jets don't have the personnel of the Dolphins. Miami's got better players, but the Jets schedule most of the tough games at home. The Dolphins schedule most of the tough games on the road. Bills have to figure out who their quarterback is. In the NFC East, which is going to be a dogfight, Philadelphia still has the best roster and the best quarterback. Dallas and the Giants, I think that offensive line And that running game is going to be the difference. Giants and Cowboys are very similar teams. Giants have better defensive personnel. I prefer the Cowboys' offensive line and personnel. I'll give Dallas the better record. Washington, they lost Sean McVay. They've never been the same offense. Then I go to the AFC West. I don't know why I got so much pushback. I went online yesterday. Everybody's calling this division the same way, and this is it. Chargers have a Hall of Fame borderline quarterback and a great roster. The Chiefs have a great roster and a great coach, but we don't know what they are at quarterback. So I have the Chargers winning the division. They got to get their kicker thing fixed. Denver, they're 9-7, 8-8, 7-9. I don't know situationally. Do they have a great coaching staff? I think it's a C staff right now, so it's 7-9. A lot of people like the Raiders. I think they have a mess on their hands right now in the front office. I don't think their coach and the GM see eye to eye. I sense turmoil this year for them. I went to the NFC West, where I don't know how you can predict anything other than the Rams. I mean, honest to God, I'm not sure how many 49ers and Seahawks would start for the Rams. Now, some Seahawk linebackers would, but the Rams are loaded. They're the best punter, the best kicker, arguably in the division, well, not arguably, best offensive line, best defensive line interior, excellent receiving core, superstar running back. I think the Niners finish second, Seahawks third, simply because I like the optimism in the room in San Francisco. Everybody kind of feels like we're getting there. In Seattle, Cliff Avrill's retired, Cam Chancellor's retired, Earl Thomas wants out. I don't like the vibe. Arizona's not terrible, but I think in the NFC it's 6-10. Then I did the AFC South. That was yesterday. Really like the Texans with Deshaun Watson returning, but I think their offensive line is weak and limits them. They're not a Super Bowl team. They're probably not an AFC championship game team because of the offensive line, but I like everything else. I don't know how you have the Colts at 6 wins. I don't understand it. They got the coach and the quarterback right. They finally got the offensive line mostly solved. I think the Jags now have to play Andrew Luck twice and Deshaun Watson twice, and last year the Jags were 4-0 against those teams. They lost 2 of their better receivers. Blake Bortles needs more help, not less help, and I never trust Tennessee. So here we go. Today we wrap it up with the NFC South. Roll it. I'll give you the records at the end. Atlanta's going to win the division. I get ownership stability, a very good roster, a very good quarterback, and a very good head coach. They've won 26 of their last 40 games, most against the superior NFC in a very tough division. A couple years ago, they got hot and people fell in love with them. And I said, they're not there yet. I really like them this year. Steve Sarkisian's in his second year. They pulled back after Kyle Shanahan left. I think they have the most underrated offensive line in football. Pro Football Focus says it's number 3. We know the Cowboys' O-line is good. We know the Eagles' O-line is good. We know the Seahawks' O-line is bad. Atlanta's is really, really good. By the way, defensive line, Vic Beasley's become a really high-end pass rusher. They've got depth at running back, depth at wide receiver. Falcons win this division. Oh, by the way, 5 of their first 7 games were at home. Open at Philly, then the schedule gets pretty easy. They should go 5-2 to start. May lose at Philly, may lose at Pittsburgh, but I think they get off to a nice start. Saints will finish second place in the division. I think they have the best head coach, quarterback, GM combo in the National Football League. Offensive line, not as good as Atlanta's, but it's elite. Defensive line, they've got a beast, Cameron Jordan. Secondary is outstanding. They've really drafted well. You got to give their front office a lot of credit. They have really drafted well. Marshawn Lattimore is a great corner. Marcus Williams is a tremendous young safety. Now, by the way, they were a little weak on the interior of the defense, and they went out and found Demario Davis. That's a good get for them. They picked up Shane Vereen, the running back, today. They've already got a good set of running backs, Ingram and Kamara. This is a really good football team. They're a playoff team. Third place is Carolina. They were 8-5 last year. Well, Cam Newton's never had back-to-back winning seasons, so they're not going to go 11-5 this year. They brought Norv Turner in, who's a precision quarterback coach, and Cam Newton is not a precision quarterback, and he's not suddenly going to change into Aaron Rodgers. Now, here's what I love about this team. Their front 7 defensively is fantastic. You could certainly make the argument it's the best front 7 in football. Luke Kuechly's a monster. Shaq Thompson. Thomas Davis, Poe, Don Terry Poe. I'm leaving guys out. Their front seven's great. It's magnificent. Their offensive line isn't close to Atlanta's, and it's not as good as the Saints. And Cam Newton can be a little undisciplined and run instead of sit in that pocket. Their wide receivers are a big ball of meh. So I got them third place in the division. And by the way, their season comes down to the final 3 games. Saints, Falcons at the Saints. That's a tough way to end a season. And finally, Tampa. I'm not even sure Jameis Winston in the front office, if they think he's the future. He's clearly the 4th best quarterback. He's not nearly as talented as Cam. He's not as precise as Matt Ryan or Drew Brees. Their offensive line's a work in progress. I think Dirk Cutter's fine, but I think you're limited with Jameis Winston, who just doesn't feel like right now he's ready on a maturity level to be a quarterback in this NFL. He's going to miss the first, 3 games? Their schedule is, first of all, he's not going to play for a while, and their schedule is awful to start. At the Saints, Eagles, Steelers, at Chicago, at Atlanta. By the way, last year they were dead last in sacks. They acquired JPP, and they drafted Vita Vea, interesting football player from the University of Washington. But this is a really good division, and they're not a really good football team. So here's what I predict the NFC South will be. Falcons will win it at 11-5. We'll get a bye and play some home games in the playoffs. Saints, Panthers, Bucks. I really am interested to see Norv Turner and Cam Newton work together. I've been critical of Cam through the years because I believe we become a precision quarterback league, and he's not a precision thrower. I think Cam's a throwback. He's like DeMar DeRozan, the basketball player. DeMar DeRozan would have been great in 1988. Can't shoot threes. Cam would have been great in 1990. But now it's a precision quarterback league, and I don't think he's a precision thrower.